I want to now introduce Stephen Vitiello. It's been my privilege to know Stephen for many years as a composer and as someone who played an important role working with Nam June to restore key video and audio pieces for Nam June's exhibition, The Worlds of Nam June Paik, at the Guggenheim Museum. Stephen's sensitivity to and knowledge of the avant-gardes in audio art and performance have informed an art practice that is uniquely his own and sophisticated in its treatment of the audio environment. His work has been represented in many exhibitions here and abroad, including the Whitney Biennial in 2002 and at the Cartier Foundation and many, many others. And now I know this because whenever I want to contact Stephen, he's either about to leave or just returning from a project, concert, and so forth. He's very busy. So we're delighted to have him here. He's also curated projects at the Whitney Museum of American Art and the Museum of Modern Art, and he's a recipient of a Guggenheim Fellowship. He's on the faculty of a wonderfully named department, the Kinetic Imaging Department at Virginia Commonwealth University. And I'd just like to remind you, we'll be also hearing from Stephen this evening when he performs with Ryuichi Sakamoto in the concert at 7 p.m. So without further ado, Stephen Vitiello. Stephen.
Okay, but I've got to switch computers and do some stuff.
Oh, it works.
I hope it works. And if it doesn't, it's Nam June's ghost kind of leading us.
Exactly.
I don't know if John realizes this. He mentions that I teach at Virginia Commonwealth University, and I never imagined teaching in my life. And I was working at Electronic Arts Intermix for 12 years. And one day John said, we have to have lunch. And I said, okay. And he sat me down and he said, it's time for you to get a teaching job either at BART or Cal Arts. And I went, what? And we lost well, now she's stretched. Anyway, but he sent me down a path that's kind of saved my life in some ways. Okay. I have a script. You can see the little thing here that says script, but I'm really bad at reading scripts. And as Edith Decker was so beautifully reading so clearly, I kept thinking maybe I can go up and ask her to read my script. But I'm not going to do that. Instead, what I'm going to do is kind of improvise and talk and do my best to hopefully tell you things, and then if you feel cheated, I'll send you a PDF of what I might have said. So what I'm primarily focusing on is Nam June's music, which my feeling has always been that it's always kind of conceived, it's always thought of as a footnote, that there's the history, which is he originally studied music, he came to Germany, he met John Cage, everything changed, and for a short period of time, he made these tape pieces, and then he sort of used that knowledge to go onto video, and video is the thing that we know best, and it's what we've seen most. It's what we hear about, and perhaps it is his great contribution to 20th century art and 21st century art. But there's this part of me that's always felt, maybe it's because I come from a musical background, but that the music sort of gets shortchanged. And as I thought about it, for the last month I've been going back and reading all the catalogs I have and watching documentaries and watching interviews and going through my own notes and things that he hand wrote and I used to take home and transcribe. And I also realized, and I'm kind of jumping ahead if you're reading my script that you're not reading yet, but that he also did a lot, as did Cage, to sort of underplay the value of his music. But another important point was that the tapes that were played, the action music pieces that Ms. Decker talked about from 1959 through 61, 62, were played reel-to-reel tapes, often from multiple tape recorders as these actions were happening on stage. If you research Paik's music, primarily what happens, at least pre-Charlotte Moorman, where the works were either filmed or videotaped, is you're getting oral histories. And Michael Nyman wrote this wonderful chapter in the Whitney 1982 catalog, and is probably the best chapter that I know of, at least in English. I know I've heard that there's things being written in German and elsewhere, but of anything that I've ever written on Paik's music, the Michael Nyman chapter is the best thing that I know of. But I'm 98% sure that he wrote that all based on oral histories, that he actually hadn't heard the tapes. And all right, here's my one moment of reading. Michael Nyman starts the essay by saying, Paik was a composer, performer before he became a video artist. And though he has not produced many exclusively musical works in recent years, he remains a composer even while he is a video artist. And he goes on to define the three kind of periods of composition, one being from about 1947 to 57, when Paik was composing what maybe he thought of as kind of straight, serious, some serial and non-serial compositions using Korean folk music mixed with influences from Schoenberg and other composers. And then the tape pieces that he made in Germany while he was also studying musique concrète. And I think musique concrète is something that doesn't get referenced often enough. You know, we always go to to Cage, sorry. And in 1958, Paik wrote a newspaper report on visiting Pierre Schaeffer's studio and the state of musique concrète. And it was, as far as I know, it's only been in Korean. And I had a Korean-American graduate student named Bayoung Won Ha help me translate it in the last couple of weeks, and I'm still trying to get through it. But I think that there's a lot to be said about the influence of musique concrète and Pierre Schaeffer and the abstraction and the way that musique concrète sort of worked with manipulation in a way that was different than Cage. And the more, you know, just in preparing for this talk, I mean, I feel like I've known Nam June's work for a long time, but then there's been these moments of revelation. And I knew the tapes really well from working at Electronic Arts Intermix. And then when I met Judd and saw the films from the 60s, I went, holy cow. And they just sort of floored me in a whole new way. And then eventually when I heard the music, it did the same thing. But even more than all of that has been reading his writings in the last few weeks, rereading Paik's writings. And I think that's where I finally understood his genius, that knowing him, he was brilliant and he was wonderfully confusing. His work changed so many things, but there's something in the language and the writings that really has just been renewing my great, great, great admiration for Paik. So with my various years of working with Nam June, I was never part of the studio. I would just get assignments, and it started with music. I was working at Electronic Arts Intermix, and Nam June used to come in, and you know, often once a week, and he'd shuffle in, and he'd say something to me like, and I'd go, what? And he wouldn't understand me, and he'd shake his head, and he'd walk away and shuffle away. And then, I think it was 1991, he came in to EAI one day, and there was a video playing on the monitor by Peter Callis, who's an Australian animator and visual artist. And he said, what's that? And I said, oh, it's a piece by Peter Callis from Australia, and that's my music. And he said, ah, very good, we go to Blimpies. And suddenly I could understand him. It was like the filter had gone, and I didn't know what to do, but I waved at everybody else. And I ran after him and crossed Broadway and went to Blimpies. And he said, okay, Mr. Vitiello, you call Mr. Bad Brain and we make concert with Mr. Boyce. And I stared, and I watched, he had like egg on his chin, and I didn't know what to do because I knew Mr. Boyce was dead, and I had no idea who Mr. Bad Brain was. And we talked, and I waited, and I thought, and I came to realize, A, that he wanted to project videotape of his performance with Joseph Beuys from Japan in the 80s, which amazingly I just found out Ryuichi Sakamoto was at the concert. And then he wanted to invite the Bad Brains to perform with him. The Bad Brains, if you don't know them, are one of the great early hardcore bands. They came from Washington, D.C., were all African-American, incredibly trained, which is unusual for punk rock, being African-American, being unusual for punk rock at the time. How Nam June knew of them in that moment seemed so unbelievably exciting to me. But that was the moment where the filter went away, was music. And because of that, I always wondered, well, what about those early music concerts from the late 50s and 60s? Because then I started to read, and whatever happened to them, and he'd say, oh, it's too boring, it's Fluxus music, nobody wants to hear that. And I was like, I do, and I know other people. And he's like, no. And he'd say the tapes were lost. And I'd seen this picture. This is also from the Whitney catalog, and always wondered what happened to those. And again, he would tell me they were gone. I had a concert in Cologne. I asked around. It was sponsored by WDR, and I asked could they help, and they said no. And as far as I knew, the tapes had been destroyed or hidden or lost or eaten. This was just a quote I pulled out, which was that Stockhausen and Ligeti had suggested that these performances be filmed. And as Michael Nyman also points out, that there's some pieces that are scored, some that are scripted, but the thing that the scripts and the scores can't put in there is the quality of Nam June himself. And even if one could get up and restage any of these pieces, there's one or two, one for violin is an exception perhaps, but for the most part, the most important part of the experience was Paik and the variability that he put into it and this incredible charisma. And something John asked me to point out and sort of stress in the talk that's really hard to point out is the kind of fear and chaos that was part of the performances. And it's something, I'll have one little moment of a film clip in a few moments that might help, but I think, again, you had to be there with him in the moment and not knowing, as Cage said, at the Etude for Pianoforte concert in 1960, there's a tall window, and you really didn't know if at some point Nam June was going to run out and just jump through the window. And he would sometimes attack the audience, sometimes attack his mentors, Cage and Tudor. You didn't know what was going to happen. Interestingly, or at least interesting to me, when I was in the mid-90s, he got a letter from Darmstadt saying that they wanted to restage one of his pieces, and could he send a score? And he sort of contradicted that early statement and sent them a note saying, every time everything I own has a different spelling of my name, which I kind of love. Vitiello tape is like a score. Any score costs $200. Pay him, when you get to 20,000, pay him $300. But the point was, I should send them a videotape, and that was the score. And this is, I guess I'm all footnotes, but my favorite Nam June story of all time, and I think I told this last year at the National Gallery, was working for Nam June. You really never knew how you would be paid, but it always in some way came back. And I was at Electronic Arts Intermix one day, and Korean television showed up, and they said, "Who is Mr. Vitiello?" And I said, "Me." And they said, "We're so sorry, but we must give you $1,000. And I said, "Why?" And they said, "Otherwise Nam June won't let us into his studio." And so I said, "I'm so sorry too, thank you," because I could use $1,000. And then I called him, and then they went over to Mercer Street and he let them in. But he was, the chaos, even in working for Nam June, working on projects, you really never knew what you were stepping into. Steno was asking Judd how he first met Nam June, and I think each one of us has these stories. You couldn't approach him and say, "I want to work for you or work with you." He had to discover you. And with me, he told me one time, "Okay, you're going to videotape a month of Flux's performances starting tomorrow." And I said, "But I don't have a camera, and I'm a musician." He said, "Oh, good luck." But it also taught me so much about making sound to be exposed to that month of Flux's performances. I think that was the graduate school that I didn't go to. All right, so back sort of to my script. And then I don't have a timer, so John will have to tell me when I'm done. Going back to those pieces, homage to John Cage, Etude for Pianoforte and Simple, as far as everyone knew, those tapes were lost, and again, it was about the stories. I remember reading, Nam June said that he was disappointed because he would spend so much time editing, splicing these bits of audio together, and yet all that anybody ever talked about were the actions. And he thought that the actions would be a background for the sound, but actually the way that everybody remembered it was that the sound was a background for the performances. So I was working for John Hanhart leading up to the 2000 retrospective, documenting videotapes in Nam June's archive, and he rolled out one day in his wheelchair and said, "Now you have discovered all of my audio tape masterpieces." And if it wasn't that box that I showed you earlier, I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure it was. But it was exactly like that. It was spools of tape spilled out on top of each other. They would say HJC, HJC, or simple, etude, literally unwound, broken splices. You really didn't know what was there. And he said, you can, get these restored, and we'll see if they work for my Guggenheim exhibition. And I asked, it was raining, could I have an umbrella? And he said, no, go. And so I went out into the street. I mean, I really had tears in my eyes. It sounds stupid, but I really did, with this treasure trove, and was given the task of bringing the tapes to my friend Art Schifrin, who does restoration of obsolete audio formats, trying to figure out tape speeds, trying to figure out, is it etude or is it HJC? Is it HGC and simple? And that seems, for an archivist, and I was only a fake archivist, but I was an archivist because I knew the work and the artists, but not archiving, maddening. But if you think about Nam June's work, as was pointed out earlier, Global Groove is his most famous videotape, but it's also the element that plays inside TV Garden. It's been remixed, reconceived. I mean, the fact that he kind of reconsidered, recycled, recontextualized was very much in keeping. So if there's part of homage to John Cage that's also in simple, that's not surprising to me. All right, let's see, I didn't hear sound when I clicked to this next. Hopefully, I'm going to click to this next slide, and what you should hear is homage to John Cage, which is also a little confusing because it's the audio that went onto the CD that came out on Sub Rosa record label after the Guggenheim show. And I think a confusion that I was never able to really work out with him, but I think that was intentional, was that what you hear is an element of the piece. It's not the piece itself, because in homage to John Cage, he had multiple tape recorders, he was smashing a piano, he was starting and stopping tapes, but fortunately, he allowed it to go out into the world as a CD. Now I'm buzzing, but I didn't do anything. Because I think, if nothing else, it gives people some sense of the sounds that he created. So let's see what happens when I switch slides. There it is.
Ausgemacht, oder der hat vorher.
I'll switch it for the moment. Just one more, I promise it's one more just personal story, and then I'll try to stay to the script. But when I hadn't seen some of the Paik studio people, John Huffman and Ken, since in a long time when I spoke at the National Gallery last year. One thing I always felt really guilty about was I sort of pushed, the only thing I felt I could ever push Nam June to do was to release that CD. And I think in the end, he was just like, okay. But at first, he kept saying, it's too boring, nobody wants to hear this. And John Huffman told me that before Nam June passed away, he used to listen to it over and over and over, very loud, and shriek and laugh. That's right? And it
over 100 times. Sometimes we listen for 2 hours.
Oh my God. I can't tell you how happy that made me feel, because I did worry. I did feel like at that point his health was declining, and he was always thinking, he was always so smart, but there was just days I'd go over and I knew he was tired, and I just worried I'd taken advantage of that tiredness. But I felt like those tapes should go out, and so I'm happy that they have. On that CD is a long prepared piano piece, and I just heard from Ray Gallen, who recorded that and actually wasn't credited but also plays on it, that there's some more of that material from the late 70s, some more prepared piano concerts. So I'm hoping that we'll hear some of it soon.
Vitipaik's job, 1690.
Oh, wait, I cheated. Okay, sorry. So that's, all right, just very quickly, I'm going to play you. When we did the audio transfers, Art Schifrin would do these little intros, and just so you hear that he's trying to make sense of what he got.
Vitipak's Job, 1699, track 4. Simple, S-I-M-P-L-E, also marked Homage, O-M-A-G-E this time, John Cage, 1959.
Okay, you should buy the CD, or you can also hear them on Ubu. There's a lot of wonderful Paik audio on Ubu. All right, again, I don't know how I'm doing on time, so whenever John tells me to stop, I'll stop. Am I still? What do you think? Okay. Yeah, sure. No, I know, that's the problem. This is a little bit from the film of Originale, the Stockhausen performance that was done in 1960. This film of it was when it was in 1964. It was the first time Paik and Charlotte worked together. But what I noticed, and it's so dark, I don't know if you'll be able to see it, Peter Moore made the film, shot the film, and I believe Barbara Moore put it together after Peter passed away. But you'll see Nam June performing some of Simple, and you'll hear some of the audio that we've already heard if we're lucky. Can you guys make it dark? Can it be darker in here at all? I don't know if you could tell, but that's Allen Ginsberg, who drinks the water from his shoe and then they kiss on the lips. Oops. All right, I gotta wrap up quickly, but just a few more things to note. One of the things that I used to get to do when I'd visit Nam June was transcribe texts that he was writing or letters to people. And he wrote this, I don't know that it's ever been published, but I'll give it to John and like a bunch of other things I've been collecting. But this note that he made, which is in 1956, I moved to Germany and met John Cage, and I love this. I wanted to make the most profound audio tape music. I would scream into a microphone all night until 3 a.m. until the landlady stormed into my room and said to me, "Here, Paik, I must put you into this insane asylum." Insane or not, this frenzied ecstasy crumbled like a house of cards. I had to start this torture again. And that kind of made me think of Nam June and John Huffman listening 100 times over and over and over. There was a lot where before Nam June turned to video, he was quite boastful of his audio. I mean, he said Socrates bemoaned that before death he wished he had seen the premiere of Young Penis Symphony. Going wrong way. I love this. Flyweight composer Higgins works with seconds. Featherweight composer Webern works with minutes. Lightweight composer works with 10 minutes. Middleweight composer works with hours, etc. Heavyweight composer works with days, weeks, years, centuries. And it won't, why am I buzzing if I move here? wow, it is. It's like the old days when you have to move so your TV didn't fuzz. But maybe I'll end with Nam June speaking because he speaks like no other. But the point, if I'd gotten a little more time, that I wanted to get to was that I think that Cage was a very important reference and influence and almost mentor figure, but he was also a complicated one, and one that there's this, I think, a really important history to be written about how they were almost like silent sparring partners. And also after the '82 exhibition, Cage said something about Nam June really being a visual artist, not a composer, and he said, I think the most beautiful music that Paik ever made was for pieces like Video Buddha, where he made no sound, and the sound of the environment was the soundtrack. And of course, that's beautiful and poetic, but it's so Cagean, and Michaela Moroni wouldn't be impressed. All right, so I'm going to play about a minute and a half, and then I'll be done.
When did you start getting interested in video as an art?
I was doing electronic music in the late 50s.
As a composer or
Yeah.
as a performer?
I mean, composer, then and performer too. Then actually I became performer because my composition was bad. Then I found that my performance was also bad. I had to do something else, you know. Then I found that nobody was working with television. So by default, or by, how does it swank in English?
Process of elimination?
Yeah, by obligation, I mean, what you can really, when you run away, you can either run away to back or run away to front. And what you run away to backward is more dangerous. They may shoot from the back. The only way to run away in crisis is to run away to front, you know. So I was running away from television and from electronic music because I was untalented. So I ran away to front and the electronic television. So I want to be always number one. And to be always number one, to guarantee to be number one, there's only one way, is to run alone, then you always be number one, see? If you run alone in marathon, you have to be number one. So therefore I looked carefully where nobody was in 1962 or 1, and I mean, one place where nobody was video art. So I decided to run on that field, you know.
Okay. Anyway, thanks so much.